Did I really give that 5 stars? Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and for the first time ever, I'm bringing you a follow-up to my 5-star reads in insert year here. I did this in 2019, and I forgot to film a part 2, and I filmed the first part in June. Yes, June of 2020, and I'm finally back to tell you all about all the other things I read in 2020 that were 5 stars. Back in June of 2020, a much shorter haired Judith, and a Judith who had apparently had enough get up and go to put on eyeshadow, what are you doing, told you all about the first 12 books of 2020 I read that I'd given 5 stars to. I promised an update, and here I am with the rest of that list. As with the previous instalment, I am not counting any books that were rereads. There were a fair amount of 5-star rereads, but when discounting them, these are just books that were new to me in 2020. Some of these will not come as a surprise if you've already watched my best books of 2020 video, but see what else made the 5-star cut. The first of these books is still on loan from Justine. Thank you, Justine. This would have been in June. I will get your books back to you at some point. This is Rogue Protocol. This is one of the Murdermont novellas. I can't remember which one. I want to say third? Yes, I think I'm correct. It is the third one. This is the only one of that series I have given 5 stars to so far. I think the rest were probably 4 stars. I didn't love the series as much as I was hoping to, which was unfortunate, but there is a side character in this who I absolutely fell head over heels for and adored, and I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but basically I love the side character so much that this book got 5 stars from me. I think I'm going to talk about this series in much more detail once I've read, I'm looking at it, what's it called? Network Effect. But basically, this book, very, very good. The whole series, very good. Don't go in with stupidly high expectations. It's not life-changing, it's mostly just fun. The next book I gave 5 stars to was Daisy Jones and the Six. This is a pretty well-known book here on BookTube. I think a lot of people have read it. People tend to really enjoy it or really not get on with the format, and I think part of that depends on which way you read it. So I actually read this on Kindle, I think it must have been. That makes sense. Really, really enjoyed it. Really liked the interview format, but I've been known to like that in previous books before, so I think if you don't get on with reading the interview format, the audiobook might be the way to go. This book is a series of interviews looking back on a band that happened in kind of the 60s that broke up after writing one amazing album, and so it's a series of interviews and you find out what happened to that band, and it's really, really good. It's a really fresh book. It's really sad, it deals with a lot of stuff. How much detail to go into? I think what I really liked about this book is it felt very new to me, and I think if you read a lot of that kind of fiction, it might not feel the same way. So I'm fully willing to admit this might be a personal preference thing, but I found it really, really enjoyable. I was absolutely hooked. I really wanted to know what happened. I am that sappy person that just wants everyone to be okay and knows full well that isn't going to happen. So this was basically the perfect book for that, for me, just for toying with my emotions. Another book that isn't sci-fi or fantasy, I had a blip in the middle of the year where I was just reading a lot of random stuff. This is Happy Fat by Sophie Hagen. They are amazing. You should look them up, follow them on all social media platforms because they're great. But their book is about fat liberation, body positivity, but more intense than that, I guess, and it's really, really good. And the reason I'm showing you a cover, even though I own a copy, is that I've lent it to my mother and she's enjoying it as well, and I think it is a really important book to read. I don't know if everyone's in the place to read it. I was definitely in a place where I was just so fed up, that's gonna get deep, but like self-loathing. I was done with it and I wanted to challenge that mindset, and what I really like about Happy Fat is it gives you a lot of solid arguments for things. It's not very wishy-washy. It's genuinely like, here is the reason that this is bad, and here are the statistics, and here is the information that you need, and I really appreciated that. I would say yes, recommended by me, but if you're here for sci-fi fantasy recommendations, this ain't one of them. Okay, this next one is an interesting one, and it's one that, looking back on it, I genuinely went, did I really give that 5 stars? But I'm honouring past me's intentions, and including Harry the Ninth. When I think back on this book, I do not give it 5 stars. I'd probably give it a high 4. I think we need to come back to the reason I give books 5 stars, and it is mostly a gut feeling of, yes, I enjoyed that book. And I think part of the reason that Harrow did that for me when I read it is a lot of the book is building up to a moment happening that you're sure is going to happen if you've read Gideon, and you're there going, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And it finally happens, and it is that really good cathartic moment. But I think it's also because most of this book doesn't make sense. So the moment things started to make sense again, I was like, huzzah, I have cracked the code. I am amazing. And I think that's why this book got a 5-star from me, because I was just really chuffed to have found an element of it that I understood. So in hindsight, on a reread, would I give this book 5 stars again? I don't know, and I think I do need to reread the series, probably before Electo comes out. But yeah, I do enjoy this series. I think it's unnecessarily complicated, but you know, to each their own. Yes, but also no. But also, huh? Another one that I do not have a copy of yet, Hollow Empire by Sam Hawke. If you've watched my best of 2020 video, you will know that this was pretty much my favourite book of the entire year. This is the sequel to City of Lies. It is fantasy mystery. It follows on from that previous book. It is deception, politics. It's just everything I want in a book. There are bits where I genuinely, everything falls into place and you're just like, I would never have seen that coming. How did you manage this? It's another one of those books where the 5-star rating really came from my feeling at the end of the book. But in this case, I think back on it with more positive feelings than I think back on Harrow. I have a full video review for this one, so I'm just gonna point you towards that and hope for the best. Next up, another one that was on my best books list. This is called The Bone Ships. I have a video review for this series as well. This is the sequel to The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. This is so good. Every time I think back on this, I'm like, oh, when that bit happens, and when that bit happens, and this, yes. I want everyone and their mum to read this book. It is so, so good. I gave it 5 stars without even hesitating. I loved The Bone Ships so much, and I was sure I was going to like this book, but I had no idea how much, and I think that part of that comes from the way that R.J. Barker takes these characters and this world he's built up in the first book and doesn't just carry on in the same direction. It goes off in kind of like a parallel line. So it's a lot of unexpected things, and it makes things much bigger than they were in the previous book, which I really enjoy. Also dragons. I think this might be the only book on the list with dragons. We'll find out. I should look at my notes before I talk, because the next book is Blood of Dragons by Robin Hobb. This is the 3rd or 4th book in the Rainwilds quartet. It is the 4th one. What I really liked about this book is a lot of the plot threads that got tied off. It was very satisfying for me. Unlike most Robin Hobb, where I end it and I'm like, that was a really good book, but I'm bummed out for the ending for this person and this person and this person who all deserved better. They did deserve better. In this case, I thought that a lot of people who deserved to get their comeuppance got their comeuppance, and I was pleased about it. I am still working through Robin Hobb. I have yet to rate another one 5 stars, so who knows what will happen in 2021. Another one of my top books of the year, this is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is so good. I don't read a lot of horror. It's interesting, a lot of these 5-star books are books that are slightly edged outside of my typical genre. Clearly, I should be shaking up my reading even more. This is phenomenal story, spades of atmosphere, wonderful. A lot of the reasons I like this would be spoilers to tell you, but it really spoke to some things that go on in my life, which I thought was very clever. I like the way that it blends real world with some more speculative elements. And also I was really surprised by how much I like this because it's not my typical genre. So it gets an extra boost for that, and I definitely think this is one of my top books of the year, and I would definitely recommend it if you are one of the 3 people left in the world who hasn't read this yet. Next up, a novella. This is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. This is one that I've brought up time and time again, but it really has been one of my favourite stories I've read this year. Young girl Esther stows away from her patriarchal, horrible society with librarians, finds out that the librarians are not all that she thought them to be, but found family, goodness, alternative future, American South. Just fantastic, really well worth reading, definitely. It's not very long. I haven't heard the audiobook, but I suspect it's very good just because Tor tend to do their audiobook novellas very well. This is one of those situations where it was a book read at the right time that I think bumped its star rating up as well. I read this on the night that they called the election, and reading books about women being awesome on nights where people who are not awesome to women lose power is always a nice thing to do. Next up on this list is Raybearer. This is an amazing YA. It was the only YA that made it onto my top books of 2020 list. It's fantastic. The world building is amazing. It's a YA that draws from familiar tropes, but it also twists them and brings in new ideas that just makes it feel new, and I really loved the main character. I thought that her journey throughout the book was great. I loved the relationships that were built. It's found family. I mean, I'm a cliche at this point, but it's really, really good. If you like YA and you haven't read Raybearer yet, I think it should be on your list. Go purchase a copy now. Next on my list of things I gave 5 stars to, Legendborn. And this mainly got a 5-star from me because it's super fun. It is fun YA that harkens back to kind of the way I used to read YA when I was a teenager, and I really like finding books that spark that joy in me again. Our main character, Bree, is at early college, which I don't know anything about, but you know, she's there, and she kind of gets caught up in a King Arthur secret society kind of thing, which is also a favourite. It sort of reminded me of Avalon High by Meg Cabot, but if you added in a whole dose of black girl magic and just good stuff. I really recommend this, especially if you're looking for something just like to bring you joy and to have a nice like little YA romance in it. It's good fun. I would definitely recommend. It's the kind of book I can imagine never being in the school library. Everyone always has it out of the library. That's just what I picture for it. Bryony Rose by T. Kingfisher. This is one of the best Beauty and the Beast retellings out there. Thank you, Asha, for the recommendation. I will link her below because you all deserve to have book recommendations from Asha. She's the best. It's fairly true to the original in terms of the story beats, but the way that it's set and the way that the main character features in the story is slightly different. So she's a gardener, she's not just, you know, randomly in the house. I just really enjoyed this. I really like the romance, the voice of the main character is amazing. I read this and I was like, yes, this is everything I want. This is the comfort reading we need in 2020. Go you, you're amazing. We are coming up on the end of the year and I had a fair few 5-star reads towards the end of the year. I don't know if just I was feeling it or happened to read some good ones. I have what is technically a reread, but I listened to the audiobook and the audiobook was smushed together with the sequel, so I'm counting it as new. But this is Silver in the Wood and The Drowned Country by Emily Tesh. These are 2 Tor novellas and they are absolutely stunning. Fairy tale, folklore, LGBT, beautiful. What I really like about the novellas is that they have each of them has its own plot. It has a very clear story. Some novellas are a bit more thought experimenty, but these really feel like you're just getting an episode in the TV show of somebody's life. And I would watch a TV show of Silver in the Wood and I will read 1,000 books in this universe. It's so wonderful. Another short one, Dead Gin in Cairo. I think a lot of people have already read this and or talked about it, and it's not very long, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. I have given the description for this book so many times, so if you've watched my recent videos, you will already know that this is alternate early 1900s Cairo, where somebody bored a hole through and brought gin into the world in a more permanent way, turning Egypt into a global superpower. Our main character in this book is an agent for the ministry that deals with the supernatural, and it's a murder mystery, and it's phenomenal. It's not very long, but it totally sets up the world. It's kind of steampunk-esque. It's just fantastic. Absolutely read. And then another 5-star read was the full novel that comes out in 2021, I believe in May, A Master of Gin, and this is in that same world, following that same character, but it's even longer and you get even more of the world and it's just great. I don't want to talk about it too much because obviously it's not out till May, but you will enjoy it. Pre-order it if you can. And the last book of 2020 that I read was a 5-star read, which is always nice. This is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is out in February in the UK. I think it's probably out the same day in the US, and it's so beautiful. It's so good. This is the 4th book in the Wayfarers series, and everything about it is phenomenal. I don't know where to go with it. Basically, you will weep with how wonderful this book is. It's so quiet and yet so much happens, and it's so alien and yet so human, but in inverted commas because there are no humans in it. It's just great and everyone should read it. And if you haven't already ordered a copy, please do. I will talk more about it closer to the release date. I have a video planned. There you go, those are the 16 books that got that coveted 5th star from me. I find it really interesting looking back on what I've rated 5 stars over the year and things that I wouldn't necessarily rate 5 stars now. Harrow, mainly. I will say that this year there were fewer books looking back where I'm like, oh no, that's not a 5-star read. So I think I am starting to cement that what makes a book 5 stars in my head a bit more than I have in previous years. If I've managed to count correctly, I make that around about 28 new 5-star reads in 2020, which is pretty good going, pretty much bang on a 10th. I think part of the reason that sounds so much fewer than the 50 or so that I had in 2019 is that I didn't reread as much in 2019 as I reread in 2020. So the overall books that are on my Goodreads shelf as having 5 stars is about 68 books, but most of those are rereads. 67. I wrote it down, but I remembered an 8. This has me very excited for 2021 releases. There are some great things coming out, some of which I've already read, and I'm thinking about doing a 5-star predictions video. I haven't done one before, but there are plenty of things coming and I feel like I actually know what I want to read this year, so that's exciting. So if you would like to see that, let me know. What books did you love in 2020? How many books got 5 stars from you? I would like to know. Comment that below. While you're down there commenting, you can also follow me on all of my social media. It's linked below. You can subscribe because it makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Should probably not hold scalding hot coffee at the same time as doing this. Some of these will not come as a surprise if you read my... Read? Yeah, this is me dotting the T's and crossing the I's. No, wait. 4 different jumpers hung over the back of this chair, and I just realised. Well, and then I found me a lover who could play the bass. He's kind of quiet, but his body ain't. And then I found me a lover who could play the bass. He's kind of quiet, but his body ain't.